During June 2020, massive amount of protests occurred as a result of the killing of a man named George Floyd. Many protests during the time pushed the idea of defunding the police. While police brutality is an issue that does need to be addressed, defunding the police isn't the answer to that. Defunding the police will only negatively affect our own safety and our safety of our communities. There are many concerns of the current state of the police force, but defunding the police is not the answer to that. The purpose of this speech is to express why defunding the police is wrong and how it will only make our communities more dangerous. I have a lot of family in law enforcement, retired and active, so I see another side of the job that many people don't. First, I'll be talking about how defunding the police reduces resources needed to properly train officers. Second, I'll be talking about the rise in violent crime in many departments, in many cities that have already defunded their police. And third, I'll be talking about how recruitment and retention of officers have decreased because of defunding the police. So defunding the police will only reduce the proper resources needed to train new and incoming officers. For us to see better actions from these officers, we're going to need better trained officers. The U.S. Bureau of Justice and Statistics in a 2013 study stated that excluding field training, basic training programs held an average of 840 hours or 21 weeks. We know that if we defund these police departments, a lot of the hours and time spent into training these people will be reduced. We also know that we need an increase in training in the areas of mental health and community policing, which will require additional funding and will not work if we defund the departments. We know as of now there is a Crisis Intervention Team Model, or CIT, which is a program that trains an officer in how to properly deal with individuals who may be going through a mental health crisis. Dr. Michael Compton led a report in 2010 on the effectiveness of the CIT model and found that officers with CIT training were found to more likely refer or transport individuals to mental health services rather than the interaction ending with an arrest. So funding the police with the specific purpose for training can allow officers to be more trained in situations and be able to help and lead to more peaceful outcomes. Next, I'll be talking about how there's been a rise of violent crime around the cities that have defunded their programs. So many cities around the nation have already defunded the police. And we see that in many of these cities, there's also been a rise in violent crime. There's been a rise in murder, burglary, and shootings within the past 2 years. The NYPD crime report states that the murder rate has increased by 45%, the burglary rate has increased by 12.5%, and shooting instances have increased by 97% from 2019 to the end of October this year in New York City. We also see that LA, Chicago, and Portland, among other cities, have also defunded their police departments, but at the same time have also had a rise in crime. The FBI 2020 Uniform Crime Report has stated that aggravated assault has risen up by 12.4% nationally, and murder has gone up by 29.4%, which is the single largest year-over-year increase on record. So we already see the effects of defunding the police in these types of cities, and it only supports the idea that will only make these communities more dangerous. Lastly, I'll be talking about the rise in resignation and retirement of officers. So in many of these cities that have defunded police programs, we see a massive amount of officers either resigning, retiring, or applying for early retirement. Officers are resigning and retiring at an alarming rate. The Police Executive Research Forum survey as of June 2021 stated that the overall percentage has increased by 18% of people who want to resign and has increased by 45% of officers that want to retire compared to the 2019-2020 period. We also see a very similar numbers when it comes to the hiring rate. The Police Executive Research Forum also surveyed the hiring rate, and we see that it has decreased by 5% overall, and with departments with 500 or more officers, we saw as much as a 36% reduction of the hiring rate. So the shortage of police officers has caused many departments not only to have not enough officers to report to the amount of calls they have, which is causing them to prioritize high-level crime and ends up neglecting lower-level crime, allowing these crimes to become and to appear more often. To conclude, we know that defunding the police isn't the way to go when we are addressing police reform. As I stated before, defunding the police will reduce proper resources needed to train officers and incoming officers, which is why we need to fund the training more to allow officers to better act in situations. We also see that in departments that have already been defunded, that there's been a rise in violent crime, and it will only make if more police programs are defunded, we'll only see a rise in violent crimes there too. And also, we see that the resignation rates and retirement rates of officers has increased over time because of the defunding movement. James Shrimpsher, who is the police chief of Algona, Washington, stated in an article by Seattle Times that finding the answers to the issues and questions that are raised in police reform bills will be difficult, but police work is also vital for the health and safety of our communities. So most people can agree that we need different types of reform for police, but defunding the police will only make things worse. Thank you.